In a world driven by ambition and deception, where boardroom alliances can be more treacherous than love affairs, Coldplay's Kiss Cam Caught My Husband Cheating Now I Own Their Careers is your front row seat to corporate betrayal turned public spectacle. This isn't fiction, it's a high-stakes emotional chess match set in the glass towers of a billion-dollar AI startup. When Harper Sinclair discovered her husband, the CEO, cuddled up with the company's HR chief on a giant stadium screen mid-Coldplay ballad, she didn't crumble. She recalculated. What follows is not a sob story, it's a calculated takedown, woven with HR policies, shareholder clause, and viral media warfare. Harper didn't just get mad. She got smart. She used their lies, their egos, and their underestimations as fuel. This novel pulls back the curtain on how a woman scorned became the architect of their downfall. Hit play and stay locked in, because by the time Harper's done, no one at that concert will forget her name. And neither will you. Chapter 1, Caught on Camera. Harper's world shatters in an instant. It was one of those sleepless nights, the kind where thoughts swirl like autumn leaves caught in an endless breeze. I lay in my bed, the soft glow of my phone lighting up the darkness as I mindlessly scrolled through TikTok, searching for something to distract me from the weight pressing against my chest. It was a typical evening in our sleek, modern Boston townhouse, where the walls were painted a pristine white, and the air hung thick with the scent of lavender from the candles I never lit. My life had become a string of curated moments, a series of snapshots that felt increasingly staged. Then the unexpected happened. A live video of a Coldplay concert flickered across my screen, and I paused, entranced by the familiar melodies that had been the soundtrack to some of my happiest memories. I had seen Coldplay perform several times. Their songs had woven themselves into the fabric of my life, each note a reminder of love, hope, and more recently, betrayal. As the camera panned across the crowd, the energy pulsed through the speakers, and I felt a twinge of nostalgia. Suddenly, the screen shifted, and there they were, Andrew, my husband, looking effortlessly charming in a fitted navy blazer, his signature smile illuminating the night, and beside him, Kristen, his HR chief, her laughter ringing like a chime, bright and disarming. A chill raced up my spine as the kiss cam zoomed in on them, capturing the moment that would irrevocably alter my life. I held my breath, time stretching as I watched Andrew's arm wrap possessively around Kristen's waist, her head tipped back in laughter, her eyes glimmering with something I had once thought was reserved for me. The intimacy of the moment was suffocating. I could feel the betrayal clawing at my insides, a visceral reaction that begged for release. But instead of tears, an icy resolve settled over me. I was not going to crumble, I was going to fight. In that instant, I screenshot the image, capturing the very moment my heart shattered. I felt a perverse sense of power coursing through me as I stared at the evidence of Andrew's infidelity. How could he do this? How could he betray me with someone so close? My mind raced back to the last few months of late nights at the office, the cryptic calendar invites, the hushed conversations I had dismissed as mere work stress. I had brushed aside the increasing distance between us, convincing myself it was just the pressures of our demanding lives. But now, as I stared at that screen, the pieces clicked into place like a sinister puzzle. The signs had been there all along, and I had chosen to ignore them. I needed to think. I slipped out of bed, the cool hardwood floor grounding me as I paced my room. The shadows danced around me, flickering with the dim light from my phone. I felt an unfamiliar fury building within, a fire igniting in the pit of my stomach. This was not just about me. It was about everything we had built, the trust so carelessly tossed aside. I looked again at the screenshot. The image burned into my mind. I could almost hear the laughter from the concert, the cheers of the crowd fading into the background as I considered my next move. I couldn't just sit back and let this happen. I was a tech executive, sharp-witted and resourceful, and I would not allow Andrew or Kristen to snatch away my power or my dignity. As I grabbed my laptop and settled into my home office, the familiar chaos of my life began to take shape, each keystroke a step toward reclaiming control. I opened a new document, my thoughts flooding onto the page as I chronicled everything I had suspected about Andrew and Kristen's late-night Slack messages that felt too personal. The press releases announcing Kristen as the strategic hire we needed. It wasn't just work. It was a ruse, a carefully crafted deception hiding in plain sight. With every word I typed, I felt a sense of clarity emerge from the fog of disbelief. I would not let them win. I would not be the woman who stood by while her world crumbled under the weight of betrayal. I was going to uncover the truth, no matter how deep I had to dig. The corporate culture at Astronomer, Andrew's company, was riddled with blurred boundaries and favoritism, and I was determined to expose it all. I knew I had to move quickly. The shock of the kiss cam would fade, but the ramifications of my discovery could echo for years. I began to gather evidence, reaching out to former employees willing to share their stories under the veil of anonymity. What I unearthed was a web of corporate secrets, quiet settlements, and whispers of misconduct. It was a battlefield out there, and I was ready to fight. As the night wore on, I felt a sense of purpose settle over me like a warm blanket. I was no longer just Harper Sinclair, the dutiful wife. I was a woman scorned, a force to be reckoned with, and I would make sure that Andrew and Kristen understood the full weight of their betrayal. As the dawn began to break, casting a soft light across my bedroom, I realized that the cold, hard truth would soon be unveiled. In that moment, I made a silent vow. I would rise from the ashes of this betrayal, stronger and more empowered than ever. The world may have seen Andrew and Kristen as a glamorous couple caught in a moment of passion, but I would show them the truth price of crossing me. The kiss cam may have captured their affection, but it was I who would write the final chapter of this story. My heart raced as I replayed the moment on my phone, the image of Andrew and Kristen frozen in time, their laughter echoing in my mind like a haunting melody. It was surreal, seeing the man I had trusted so completely wrapped around another woman, his arm slung across her waist like a trophy, his charm spilling over in a way that felt all too familiar. I could almost taste the betrayal, bitter and sharp, overwhelming the sweetness of the memories I had built with him. I sat on the edge of my bed, the cool leather of the headboard pressing against my back, grounding me as I fought against the dizzying wave of emotions. The sleek, modern lines of our Boston townhouse felt suffocating, the pristine white walls closing in on me. I had designed this space to be a sanctuary, a reflection of our life together, but now it felt like a prison built on a foundation of lies. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the video, paused again on their shared moment, desperate to dissect every detail. My mind raced back to the last few months, the signs I had dismissed as mere quirks of a busy life. Late-night meetings that stretched into the early hours, his phone buzzing with messages he hastily silenced, cryptic calendar invites that always seemed to pop up out of nowhere. There had been whispers in the office, murmurs of a corporate culture rife with favoritism and blurred lines, but I had brushed them aside as unfounded gossip. How could I have been so blind? I closed my eyes, trying to conjure the memories of our evenings together, the laughter we shared over glasses of wine, the stolen kisses in the kitchen, but they felt tainted now, marred by the knowledge of his infidelity. The way he had looked at Kristen, that glimmer in his eyes, it was a look I had once thought was reserved for me alone. The realization struck me like a punch to the gut. I had been reduced to a spectator in my own life, watching as Andrew played a role I no longer recognized. Sitting there, the weight of betrayal heavy on my chest, I felt fury igniting within me. This was not just about the love I had lost. It was about my dignity, my career, everything I had worked so hard to build alongside him. I was not going to let this define me. I would uncover the truth, and I would make them pay for their betrayal. I was a tech executive, sharp-witted and resourceful, not some helpless victim waiting for a fairy tale to save me. The resolve settled over me like armor, a protective shield against the chaos swirling in my mind. I stood up, pacing the room as I formulated my plan. I needed to dig deeper, to find evidence that would expose their deception. My fingers itched to type, to document every instance that felt off, every late-night conversation that had made me question his loyalty. I grabbed my laptop and settled into my home office, the familiar hum of technology surrounding me, a comfort in the midst of turmoil. As I opened a new document, my thoughts poured out onto the screen, a torrent of memories and suspicions. I recalled the press release announcing Kristen as the strategic hire we needed, her face beaming with pride as Andrew stood beside her, his arm draped casually over her shoulder. It had seemed innocuous at the time, a simple corporate move, but in hindsight, it was a calculated maneuver, a step in their twisted game. I leaned closer to the screen, each keystroke igniting a fire within me. The late-night Slack messages, the hushed conversations behind closed doors, the way he had shielded his phone from me, whenever it buzzed it all painted a picture of a man living a double life. I was determined to expose Andrew and Kristen for what they truly were, partners in crime, betraying not just me but the essence of everything we had built together. But I knew I had to be careful. The corporate world was a minefield, and one wrong step could blow up in my face. I would need allies, people who had witnessed the cracks forming in the facade of Andrew's carefully curated life. I began reaching out to former employees under the cover of anonymity, piecing together their stories like a detective on the hunt for the truth. With each conversation, the web of deceit began to unravel. I learned about the toxic culture at Astronomer, the favoritism, the whispers of quiet settlements that had silenced dissenters. It was a labyrinth of corporate misconduct, and I was determined to navigate it. Each revelation fueled my resolve, transforming my shock and pain into something sharper anger and determination. Late nights turned into early mornings as I buried myself in this investigation. My office transformed into a war room. The scent of burnt coffee filled the air, mingling with the faint whir of my laptop, a backdrop to my relentless pursuit of justice. I was no longer just Harper Sinclair, the dutiful wife. I was a woman scorned, a force to be reckoned with, and I would make sure that Andrew and Kristen understood the full weight of their betrayal. I could see the headlines now, the stories that would unfold as I gathered evidence and leaked it to the media. My heart raced at the thought of the chaos I would unleash, the public spectacle that would surround their downfall. I would not only reclaim my dignity, I would take back my narrative. As the dawn broke, casting a soft light across my bedroom, I realized I was on the edge of something monumental. I was ready to unleash the beast within, to rise from the ashes of betrayal stronger and more empowered than ever. Andrew and Kristen may have shared a moment captured by a kiss cam, but it would be my story that would dominate the headlines. I would be the one writing the final chapter of this twisted tale, and it would be a narrative of power, revenge, and unapologetic female strength. With that thought burning bright in my mind, I turned back to my laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating the path I had chosen. I was ready to fight, and I would not back down until I had justice. The kiss cam may have caught their affection, but it was I who would expose their treachery to the world. The game was on, and I would play to win. The glow from my phone illuminated the dim corners of my bedroom as I sat on the edge of my bed, my heart thundering in my chest. I could hardly believe what I had just witnessed at a moment that should have been filled with joy had turned into a weapon of betrayal. There they were, Andrew and Kristen, my husband and his HR chief, caught in a kiss that felt like a punch to my gut. The kiss cam at the Coldplay concert had zoomed in on them, capturing intimacy that was meant for me. My mind raced, a chaotic swirl of disbelief and betrayal. How could he do this? How could he betray the vows we had exchanged? I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, but then something shifted within. I wasn't going to let this be the end of my story. I was going to take control. With a swift swipe of my finger, I captured the moment on my screen, a screenshot that would serve as my armor in the battle ahead. I stared at the image, Andrew's arm possessively wrapped around Kristen, her laughter echoing in my mind like a mocking refrain. The chill that had crept into my bones melted into a fierce resolve. I would not be a victim. I would be a warrior. I took a deep breath, the scent of lavender from the candles I never lit filling the air, grounding me in the reality of my situation. The pristine white walls of our Boston townhouse felt like they were closing in around me, but instead of suffocating, I felt empowered. This was my life, and I was done being the dutiful wife standing in the shadows of a man who had chosen betrayal. As I paced the room, the cool hardwood floor beneath my feet became a sanctuary of thought. I needed a plan. I needed to strategize my revenge. I could not afford to act impulsively. A calculated approach was essential. I opened my laptop and let my fingers fly across the keyboard, documenting every detail I could remember, every sign I had previously ignored. There had been late nights at the office, cryptic calendar invites that seemed innocent at first glance, but in hindsight, they screamed of deceit. I recalled the press release celebrating Kristen as the strategic hire we needed, and how proud Andrew had looked standing beside her. What a clever ruse, I thought. A facade built with lies designed to mask their growing connection. I felt a surge of adrenaline course through me as I gathered evidence, piecing together a narrative of betrayal that I would unleash upon the world. I reached out to former employees, those who had walked the halls of astronomer Andrew's company and witnessed the toxic culture that thrived within its walls. Under the veil of anonymity, they shared their stories, each one a brick in the wall of deceit I was constructing. With every interview, I discovered a pattern: favoritism, blurred boundaries, and whispers of quiet settlements that had silenced dissenters. The corporate world was a minefield, but I was determined to navigate it. I was no longer just Harper Sinclair, the dutiful wife. I was a woman scorned, and the fire within me was relentless. As the night wore on, I became more than just a passive observer of my own life. I was a force to be reckoned with, a woman scorned who would make Andrew and Kristen understand the full weight of their actions. I could see the headlines now, the scandal brewing as I leaked the internal audit to influencers with millions of followers. My heart raced at the thought this was my moment to turn the tide. When dawn broke, casting a soft light across my bedroom, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to unleash the beast within, to rise from the ashes of betrayal stronger than ever. Andrew and Kristen may have shared a moment captured by the kiss cam, but it would be my story that dominated the headlines. The thought burned bright in my mind as I turned back to my laptop, my fingers flying across the keys. I would gather receipts that would expose their treachery, evidence that would show the world the truth behind their facade. I would not rest until I had reclaimed my dignity and my narrative. The kiss cam may have caught their affection, but it was I who would write the final chapter of this story. I would rise from the embers of betrayal, reclaiming my power and transforming it into something unstoppable. This was just the beginning, and I was ready to fight. Chapter 2: Unraveling Lies. Harper's investigation begins. Sitting in my home office, I felt the weight of the past week pressing down on my chest like a heavy fog. The walls were lined with books and framed awards that once represented my achievements, but now they felt like relics of a life I was trying to escape. My laptop glowed softly in front of me, casting an eerie light over the scattered documents that covered my desk. I had always prided myself on being organized, but now chaos reigned supreme, mirroring the tumult in my heart. As I scrolled through Andrew's calendar invites, I could feel the familiar pang of betrayal twist in my gut. They were innocuous enough at first glance, meetings labeled strategy session and client dinner scattered throughout the week. But it was the time slots that caught my eye. Late-night meetings that never seemed to end, long gaps where he should have been home. I recalled the times he brushed off my questions with vague excuses, his charming smile hiding secrets I was too naive to see. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing through the memories. Late-night Slack messages that buzzed with excitement, but never once did I question who they were for. Just work, he had said, his voice smooth as silk. How easily I had accepted those words, painting over the cracks with trust. Now, every message felt like a dagger, each one echoing with the laughter I had once thought was directed at me. Kristen Mureth's name sent a shiver down my spine. I could picture her in the office, always a little too confident, her tailored suits hugging her form just right, and that disarming smile that made anyone feel at ease. She had been the strategic hire, the one everyone raved about. In hindsight, it was so obvious, like a flashing neon sign I had ignored. I recalled her lingering looks at Andrew during company events, the way her laughter seemed to echo a little too loudly. Was I the only one who had seen it? The documents sprawled across my desk were more than just papers. They were pieces of a puzzle I was desperate to solve. I flipped through them, scanning for anything that would connect the dots. I had learned the art of the investigation during my years in tech, but this was personal. I needed proof, something concrete to shatter the facade of my perfect marriage. My fingers hovered above the keyboard as I pulled up the internal memos, the very ones that had celebrated Kristen's rapid ascent within the company. Unprecedented talent, they called her. I wanted to retch. As I delved deeper, I stumbled upon a series of settlements, quiet resolutions that had been swept under the rug. The names of former employees whispered through the pages, all women. I felt my heart quicken with rage. Were these the sacrifices made to keep Andrew and Kristen's little game hidden? I could feel the embers of revenge igniting within me, each revelation fueling my resolve. Maya had always said, "You have to turn pain into power." I could almost hear her voice now, echoing in my mind. I picked up my phone and texted her, "Meet me at the coffee shop in an hour. I need to talk." The truth was out there, and I was determined to find it. I could no longer be the woman who stood by while my world crumbled. I would become the force of nature that tore it all down, starting with the lies woven into the fabric of my life. The shadows in my office seemed to darken, but I was undeterred. I had a mission now, a goal that propelled me forward. I could almost taste the sweet satisfaction of justice on my lips. There was no turning back. Sitting in my home office, I felt the weight of the past week pressing down on my chest like a heavy fog. The walls were lined with books and framed awards that once represented my achievements, but now they felt like relics of a life I was trying to escape. My laptop glowed softly in front of me, casting an eerie light over the scattered documents that covered my desk. I had always prided myself on being organized, but now chaos reigned supreme, mirroring the tumult in my heart. As I scrolled through Andrew's calendar invites, I could feel the familiar pang of betrayal twist in my gut. They were innocuous enough at first glance, meetings labeled strategy session and client dinner scattered throughout the week. But it was the time slots that caught my eye. Late-night meetings that never seemed to end, long gaps where he should have been home. I recalled the times he brushed off my questions with vague excuses, his charming smile hiding secrets I was too naive to see. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing through the memories. Late-night Slack messages that buzzed with excitement, but never once did I question who they were for. Just work, he had said, his voice smooth as silk. How easily I had accepted those words, painting over the cracks with trust. Now, every message felt like a dagger, each one echoing with the laughter I had once thought was directed at me. Kristen Mureth's name sent a shiver down my spine. I could picture her in the office, always a little too confident, her tailored suits hugging her form just right, and that disarming smile that made anyone feel at ease. She had been the strategic hire, the one everyone raved about. In hindsight, it was so obvious, like a flashing neon sign I had ignored. I recalled her lingering looks at Andrew during company events, the way her laughter seemed to echo a little too loudly. Was I the only one who had seen it? The documents sprawled across my desk were more than just papers. They were pieces of a puzzle I was desperate to solve. I flipped through them, scanning for anything that would connect the dots. I had learned the art of the investigation during my years in tech, but this was personal. I needed proof, something concrete to shatter the fraud of my perfect marriage. My fingers hovered above the keyboard as I pulled up the internal memos, the very ones that had celebrated Kristen's rapid ascent within the company. Unprecedented talent, they called her. I wanted to retch. As I delved deeper, I stumbled upon a series of settlements, quiet resolutions that had been swept under the rug. The names of former employees whispered through the pages, all women. I felt my heart quicken with rage. Were these the sacrifices made to keep Andrew and Kristen's little game hidden? I could feel the embers of revenge igniting within me, each revelation fueling my resolve. Maya had always said, "You have to turn pain into power." I could almost hear her voice now, echoing in my mind. I picked up my phone and texted her, "Meet me at the coffee shop in an hour. I need to talk." The truth was out there, and I was determined to find it. I could no longer be the woman who stood by while my world crumbled. I would become the force of nature that tore it all down, starting with the lies woven into the fabric of my life. The shadows in my office seemed to darken, but I was undeterred. I had a mission now, a goal that propelled me forward. I could almost taste the sweet satisfaction of justice on my lips. There was no turning back. With every click of the keyboard, I descended deeper into the world of astronomer Andrew's company, where ambition thrived and ethics were mere afterthoughts. I pulled up the press releases that hailed Kristen as the company's golden girl, the one who would lead them into the future. Innovative leadership, they called it, as if a well-placed smile and a penchant for late-night drinks could redefine success. I swallowed hard, bitterness rising in my throat. What had once been accolades now felt like the nails in my coffin. Scrolling through the documents, I couldn't help but notice the patterns. Kristen's meteoric rise coincided perfectly with Andrew's increasing distance from me. It was as if they were playing a game, and I was the last to know the rules. I felt like a character in a novel, one that was being written in real time, with plot twists I never signed up for. I was the unsuspecting heroine, but I refused to remain passive. I grabbed a highlighter and began to mark key phrases in the memos, highlighting Kristen's achievements while Andrew's involvement loomed in the background like a dark cloud. The more I uncovered, the more I felt the pieces clicking into place. There had to be a connection. I needed to find something concrete, something that would expose them both for the frauds they were. An hour later, I found myself in a small coffee shop nestled in one of Boston's affluent neighborhoods, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the scent of pastries. I sat at a corner table, my heart racing with anticipation. Meyer arrived, her presence instantly comforting. "You look like you've just unearthed a scandal," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Maybe I have," I replied, unable to hide the smirk that crept onto my face. I started digging into Kristen's background at Astronomer. "You won't believe the things I've found." As I recounted my discoveries, I watched Maya's expression shift from curiosity to disbelief. "So, she's been using her position to manipulate things in her favor," she said, her brow furrowing. "And Andrew, does he have any idea you're onto them?" "Not yet," I said, a sense of empowerment flooding through me, "but I will make him aware. I need to gather more evidence, something that will make the truth undeniable. If they think they can play games with my life, they are sorely mistaken." Maya leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "What's your plan?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my mission. "I'm going to expose them. I'll find a way to make their secrets public. I want everyone to see who they really are." The determination in my voice mirrored the fire igniting within me. I could feel the world shifting, the chaos around me transforming into a battlefield where I would emerge victorious. There was no turning back now. This was my moment to reclaim my narrative, to unravel the lies and build something stronger from the ashes of betrayal. The fluorescent lights hummed above me, casting a sterile glow over my home office. My sanctuary, once a space of inspiration and productivity, now felt more like a crime scene, littered with the evidence of deceit. Documents sprawled across my desk, each one a piece of the puzzle I was desperate to solve. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of betrayal pressing down on me, suffocating yet invigorating. This was my moment. I was no longer merely Harper Sinclair's dutiful wife. I was Harper Sinclair, the investigator. I leaned in closer to my laptop, the screen illuminating the chaos that had become my life. I had spent hours sifting through Andrew's internal emails, trying to decipher the hidden language that masked his infidelity. But now, a new lead beckoned me. A shell company, hidden beneath layers of corporate jargon, had surfaced amidst the mess of Astronomer's executive perks. My heart raced as I clicked through the documents, each page revealing more than I had anticipated. There it was, buried in a memo, a name I had never seen before: Apex Innovations. On the surface, it appeared innocuous enough, a consultancy firm tucked away in the corporate underbelly of Boston. But the more I read, the more I realized it wasn't just a consultancy. It was a fraud, a shell company designed to funnel executive benefits under the radar, ensuring that those in power could indulge without scrutiny. I could almost hear the whisper of betrayal echoing through the walls of my office. I scrolled through the documents feverishly, piecing together the connections. It took only a few minutes before the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Kristen Moore, the so-called strategic hire, was not only on the board of Apex, but had also been receiving substantial bonuses disguised as consultancy fees. My fingers trembled as I connected the dots. Thighs was more than just a corporate affair. It was a well-orchestrated scheme. Who the hell does she think she is? I muttered under my breath, frustration rising like bile in my throat. Kristen's ambition was no longer merely an annoyance. It was a direct threat, a weapon wielded against me and every woman who had ever been sidelined in a corporate setting. I leaned back in my chair, the realization swirling in my mind like a tempest. Andrew had always been one to play the long game, a strategist at heart, but this was a betrayal of epic proportions. My heart raced as I imagined the late-night rendezvous between them, sharing whispered secrets and stolen kisses, all while I remained blissfully unaware, trapped in the illusion of my perfect marriage. The weight of my suspicions had turned into a fierce determination, igniting a fire within me that I hadn't known existed. I grabbed my phone and texted Maya, my confidante and fierce advocate, who had always supported my ambitions. I found something big. Meet me at the caf in 30. I hit send, my heart pounding. I needed her insight, her unwavering support, and most importantly, I needed to share this explosive information with someone who understood the stakes. As I waited, I rifled through the papers again, feeling the adrenaline course through my veins. Each document told a story, each number whispered a secret. The perks that Andrew and Kristen had taken for granted were not only unethical, they were criminal. I scanned the financial reports, the lavish trips and extravagant gifts meticulously documented, all funneled through Apex. I could practically see the jet-setting lifestyle they had built together, complete with stolen moments in hotel rooms and sun-soaked afternoons. On yachts the caf buzzed with life when Meyer arrived. Her presence a welcome distraction from the chaos swirling in my mind. She slid into the chair across from me, her eyes bright and curious. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, half smirking. "Worse," I replied, pushing the documents toward her. "Look at this. I think Andrew and Kristen are embezzling funds through a shell company." Maya's brows knitted together as she scanned the papers. "Wow, this is huge. But are you sure? This kind of accusation could blow back on you, Harper." "I know," I said, the weight of her words settling over me, "but I can't ignore it. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about holding them accountable for what they have done." Maya met my gaze, her eyes filled with understanding. "Okay, so what's the plan? I need to dig deeper," I replied, my mind racing. "I want to find out if there are other women involved, anyone else who might have been silenced or threatened. If there's a pattern, I can expose it and then I can take them down." Maya nodded, a hint of admiration flickering in her eyes. "You're fierce, Harper, I love it. But you need to be careful. We're not just playing a game here. These are powerful people with a lot at stake." "I know," I said, biting my lip, "but they don't know me. They don't know what I'm capable of when pushed to my limits." With renewed determination, I pulled up Kristen's LinkedIn profile again, scrutinizing every connection and endorsement. "Look at this," I said, pointing to a string of high-profile endorsements from executives who had turned a blind eye to the misconduct. "These people are complicit, and I want to know why." Maya leaned in, her voice low. "I can help you reach out to some former employees. If there's a network of women who have been treated unfairly, we need to find them." The thought sent a thrill through me. Yes, we can build a coalition, gather evidence, and make this public. They need to be held accountable, and I want to be the one to do it. As we sat there, the energy in the cafe filled my chest with hope. The walls of my world were no longer closing in. They were opening up, revealing the path to empowerment. I was on the brink of something monumental, ready to unleash a storm that would dismantle the lives of those who thought they could play me for a fool. "Let's do this," I said, my voice steady with resolve. They've had their fun, but now it's my turn to rewrite the narrative. With every word, I felt the shackles of my old life crumble away. I was no longer the passive observer in this drama. I was the protagonist, and I would not back down until I had reclaimed my story. The truth was out there, and I was going to find it, no matter the cost. The coffee shop on Charles Street buzzed with energy, the air thick with the rich aroma of roasted beans, and the chatter of patrons lost in their own worlds. I settled into a corner table, the sun filtering through the large windows, casting a warm glow over my scattered notes and my laptop. Maya arrived, her presence a welcome anchor amidst the chaos swirling in my mind. "Okay, spill it," she said, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What's got you so wound up?" I took a deep breath, the weight of my findings pressing heavily on my chest. "It's Andrew and Kristen. I'm diving into astronomers' internal documents, and it's worse than I thought." I pushed a page across the table, a printout of the press release announcing Kristen's promotion. "Look at this. They call her the strategic hire we needed. It's like Thayer trying to sell her as some corporate messiah." Maya scanned the document, her brow furrowing. "And you think there's more to it?" "More than I could ever imagine," I replied, the anger bubbling beneath my cool exterior. Her rise in the company coincides perfectly with Andrew's late nights and cryptic messages. "It's too neat, too convenient. I just know Thayer in this together." "Have you thought about confronting him?" she asked, tilting her head, concern etching her features. "Not yet," I admitted, the thought sending a shiver down my spine. "I need solid evidence first. I need to understand how deep this goes." With renewed determination, I opened my laptop and began scrolling through internal memos. Each line revealed a little more about Kristen's trajectory meetings, where she'd been the sole attendee, accolades showered upon her like confetti. The words "unprecedented talent" leapt off the page like a warning. I could almost feel the walls of my perfect world closing in, but I had to keep going. "Harper, do you really think he would cheat on you?" Meyer asked softly, her voice a comforting balm amidst the storm. "Part of me wants to say no, but the evidence is piling up, and it's all pointing in one direction. I've seen the way he looks at her, and it's not the same way he looks at me. I've been blind, and now am furious." Maya reached across the table, her hand resting on mine. "You're not blind anymore. You're seeing the truth, and that's a powerful thing." I nodded, letting her words sink in. The truth was an intoxicating elixir, and I was ready to drink deeply. I pulled up Kristen's LinkedIn profile, scanning her connections and endorsements. "Look at this," I said, pointing to the list of recommendations, each one a testament to her cutthroat ambition. "She's connected to all the right people, and I suspect they're all part of the game. Have you thought about talking to anyone who might have insights?" Maya suggested. "Former employees, maybe. They could have stories that would help you connect the dots." "Absolutely," I replied, the idea igniting a spark of hope. "I'll reach out to anyone who might know something. If there are whispers of favoritism or misconduct, I want to hear them." As the cafe filled with the sounds of laughter and clinking cups, I felt a shift inside me. No longer was I the victim in this story. I was becoming the investigator, armed with a mission and the will to uncover the truth. "I'm going to take down the fraud," I declared, my voice steady with resolve. "This isn't just about me anymore. It's about all the women who have been silenced. Maya smiled, her eyes shining with pride. That's the spirit. Let's as I sat in my home office, surrounded by a fortress of papers and the blue glow of my laptop, the weight of betrayal pressed down on me like a heavy fog. Memories of happier times with Andrew flickered through my mind, each one now tainted by the bitter taste of deceit. I remembered our wedding day, the way he had looked at me as if I were the only person in the universe, the laughter we shared over candlelit dinners in our favorite trattoria on the outskirts of the city. Those moments felt like a lifetime ago, and now they hung like shadows over my heart. I glanced at the printouts scattered across my desk, the ink smudged with the sweat of my determination. Every document represented a puzzle piece in the elaborate web of lies Andrew and Kristen had spun. I could almost hear Andrew's laughter echoing in my ears, a sound that had once brought me joy but now twisted into something sinister. It was hard to reconcile the charming man I had married with the duplicitous figure who had betrayed me so publicly. "Focus, Harper," I whispered to myself, shaking my head as if to dislodge the haunting memories. I pulled up a file labeled Internal Memos, a digital trove of evidence I hoped would lead me to the truth. The words blurred together for a moment, but then I zeroed in on a mention of Christina's strategic hire, who seemed to have wormed her way into every aspect of the company and of Andrew's life. I couldn't help but think back to the subtle signs, the late nights at the office that had felt so innocuous at the time. I had been trusting, believing in our partnership while he was crafting a betrayal right under my nose. The cryptic calendar invites, the secretive phone call show. Had I been so blind? I could feel the anger simmering beneath my skin, a fierce and fiery resolve boiling up. This was a fight I was ready to wage. The sunlight poured through the window, illuminating the chaos around me, yet it felt like a spotlight on my self-doubt. I could picture Andrew's face, the way his eyes sparkled when he talked about his ambitions, his dreams for the company. He had always been the confident one, the one who charmed everyone with his easy smile and charismatic presence. But now, I saw that charm for what it truly was, a mask, a facade hiding a world of betrayal. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. I needed clarity, focus. I opened a new document on my laptop and began typing out a list of questions that had been swirling in my mind. What had Kristen promised him? What had she given him that I could not? The comparisons stung, but I had to face them if I wanted to unravel this mess. As I wrote, I felt the familiar presence of Maya creeping into my thoughts. She had always been my sounding board, my unwavering support. I could almost hear her voice reminding me that I was more than just Andrew's wife, that I was a force to be reckoned with. "You are powerful, Harper," she would say, her eyes fierce with conviction. "Do not let him diminish you." I paused, reflecting on those words. The truth was I had been diminished, not just by Andrew's betrayal but by my own complacency. I had let my identity become intertwined with his, and now I was battling to reclaim the woman I had once been. I was not just a tech executive, I was a warrior ready to fight for my truth. The clock on the wall ticked away, reminding me of the time slipping through my fingers. I had to act quickly. I needed to reach out to former employees, those who had witnessed the corporate culture that had become so toxic, those who had seen the favoritism that had allowed Kristen to rise unchecked. I could almost hear the whispers of their stories, waiting to be told. "Let's see who's willing to talk," I murmured, my fingers dancing over the keyboard as I drafted an email to a contact I had found through LinkedIn. "You know more than you are letting on, and I need your help." My heart raced as I hit send, the anticipation of potential revelations invigorating me. But even as I focused on the task at hand, the memories of Andrew's smile haunted me, taunting me with what I had lost. I recalled the way he would hold my hand in public, his fingers entwined with mine as if he were staking a claim. Now that claim felt like a lie, a cruel joke played at my expense. I shook my head again, forcing myself to redirect my thoughts. I couldn't afford to dwell on the past. I had to look ahead. With each discovery I made, I inched closer to the truth, and with every email I sent, I felt the power of my voice growing stronger. Time to turn the tables, I said aloud, the conviction settling within me. I was no longer just Harper, the woman scorned. I was Harper, the investigator, the force ready to expose the deception that had so deeply infiltrated my life. I spent the next few hours diving into research, my mind racing with possibilities and strategies. I mapped out the connections between Kristen and Andrew, painstakingly piecing together the timeline of their affair. Each revelation felt like a dagger to my heart, but it also fueled my determination. I was rebuilding my life, brick by brick, and I would not stop until I had torn down the walls of betrayal they had constructed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, I felt a surge of hope. I was ready to confront the lies, ready to uncover the truth that had been hidden from me. Each moment spent in this office was a step toward reclaiming my narrative, a step closer to the justice I so desperately sought. With renewed focus, I returned to my laptop, ready to dig deeper, ready to expose the secrets that had cost me everything. The night was just beginning, and so was my journey. Chapter 3: Corporate Secrets Exposed. Harper's Quest for Justice. The cafe was a cozy refuge from the chaos of the city, its warm ambience and rustic decor offering a stark contrast to the storm brewing within me. As I settled into a corner booth, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the sweet aroma of pastries, wrapping around me like a comforting hug. But my heart raced, a relentless drumbeat of anticipation and anxiety. Today was the day I would gather crucial intel that could unravel the corporate fraud of astronomer. I glanced at my phone for the umpteenth time, the screen illuminating my anxious face. My contact was late, and impatience gnawed at me. What if they had changed their mind? I could not afford to lose this opportunity. I had already pored over so many documents, but I needed first-hand accounts to piece together the narrative I was crafting, to expose the rot festering within the walls of astronomer. Just as I began to doubt, a figure emerged from the bustling crowd, a woman with auburn hair pulled back into a messy bun and a nervous energy that crackled around her. She scanned the room, her eyes landing on mine, and a flicker of recognition sparked. "Harper?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the chatter. "Yes, that's me," I replied, waving her over. She slid into the seat across from me, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. "Thanks for meeting me. I wasn't sure if I'd have the courage to show up. Believe me, I understand." "I'm just as nervous," I admitted, leaning in slightly, the urgency of our conversation pressing down upon us. "But I need to know what you've experienced at Astronomer." She took a deep breath, glancing around as if to ensure no one was listening. "It was toxic, Harper. The culture there, it's all about who you know, not what you know. Kristen had her favorites, and if you weren't in her inner circle, you didn't stand a chance." I nodded, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "I've heard whispers about favoritism. Can you give me examples? Anything specific?" Her gaze dropped to the table, and she bit her lip. There were employees who were promoted despite lacking the qualifications. It wasn't about merit, it was about being close to the right people. I was passed over for promotion once, and I know it was because I didn't fit Kristen's mold. My heart raced as I scribbled notes, each word a piece of the puzzle falling into place. And what about the NDAs? I've heard they silence employees who speak out. She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. Yes, absolutely. They made us sign them when we were hired. It was like a gag order. No one wanted to risk their job by speaking out against the culture. I'm still bound by mine, but I can't stay silent anymore. Thank you for trusting me, I said, my voice steady. You're not alone in this. I'm going to expose what's happening, and I need your help. Our conversation flowed like the warm coffee in our mugs, each revelation a sip of courage that fortified my resolve. She shared anecdotes that painted a vivid picture of a company entrenched in favoritism and corruption, stories of colleagues who had been sidelined due to personal vendettas, and whispered secrets of hidden settlements that had kept disgruntled employees quiet. It's all a fraud, Harper. They project this image of being a progressive company, but behind closed doors, it's a different story. I've seen employees pressured to sign off on settlements just to keep things under wraps. Settlements? For what? I pressed, my pulse quickening. For harassment, for discrimination, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Kristen has a way of making those problems disappear, but it's all just smoke and mirrors. I leaned back, absorbing the weight of her words. Each story she shared was a thread I could weave into my growing tapestry of evidence. Do you have any documentation? Anything that could help? Her eyes darted around the cafe, and she hesitated before reaching into her bag, pulling out a small envelope. I was hoping Yao'd ask. I managed to keep a few internal documents. They're not pretty. I took the envelope, my hands trembling slightly as I opened it. Inside were emails, memos, and reports that detailed the very misconduct we were discussing. My heart raced as I thumbed through them, each page a goldmine of information that could potentially bring down Andrew and Kristen. This is incredible, I said, my voice low. Thank you for risking your safety to give me this. She smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. I just want to see the truth come out. I've watched too many good people suffer because of their greed. Then we'll make sure they pay for it, I vowed, a fierce determination igniting within me. We'll expose them. As we continued our conversation, the cafe buzzed with life around us, but I was lost in the resolve that bound us together. I was no longer just a tech executive scorned by betrayal. I was a warrior, gathering the weapons I needed for the fight ahead. Before we parted ways, I made her promise to stay in touch. I might need more information as I dig deeper. Can you do that? Of course, she replied, her voice infused with newfound strength. Just be careful. They won't take kindly to this. I nodded, fully aware of the danger that lay ahead, but the stakes had never felt higher. I left the cafe, the crisp Boston air invigorating me as I walked back to my car, the envelope tucked safely in my bag. With every step, I felt the power of the truth surging through me, a force that could no longer be contained. I was ready to expose the lies that had haunted me for too long. Andrew and Kristen had played their games, but now the rules were changing. I had the evidence, and I was going to use it to dismantle their empire, brick by brick. The adrenaline coursed through my veins as I drove back home, visions of my next steps swirling in my mind. I would leak this information. It was time to turn the tables. The world needed to know what was happening behind the polished glass doors of Astronomer, and I was going to be the one to tell them. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the city, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. I was no longer just a victim, I was a force to be reckoned with. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was ready to take my stand. The truth would be my weapon, and I intended to wield it with precision and power. The afternoon light streamed into my home office, illuminating the chaos I had created. Papers were strewn across my desk, some marked with frantic notes, others with wild scribbles that mirrored the storm brewing inside me. I had transformed my once serene workspace into a battleground, each document a weapon in my fight against betrayal. As I clicked through the digital archives of Astronomer, my pulse quickened with every revelation that surfaced, each finding a new layer to the deception I was determined to peel away. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples as I stared at the screen. A shell company. It seemed innocuous enough, but I could feel its sinister undertones reverberating through my thoughts. What was it hiding? Who was benefiting? I pulled up the relevant documents and stared at the names of executives linked to this mysterious entity, my heart racing with the realization that Kristen was at the center of it all. She was not just Andrew's affair. She was a puppet master, orchestrating a web of deception that extended far beyond the personal. "Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes," I muttered to myself, my fingers poised above the keyboard. I began connecting the dots, tracing Kristen's perks back to lavish retreats and exclusive perks that seemed to coincide perfectly with her meteoric rise within the company. It was as if she had been groomed for this very moment, her ambition insatiable and her morals skewed. As I scrolled through the financial reports, each line felt heavier than the last. There were significant bonuses and mysterious expenditures that lacked explanation. I could almost hear the whispers of my former colleagues, their stories echoing in my mind. Had they suspected something? Had they seen the same patterns I was now uncovering? The thought fueled my determination. I needed evidence that would expose this toxic culture and the corrupt individuals at its helm. Maybe I should reach out to those former employees, I mused aloud, recalling Maya's suggestion. The image of their faces, filled with fear and resignation, haunted me. They had been silenced, but I was ready to give them a voice. I jotted down a list of contacts, each name an opportunity to unearth the truth. My heart raced with the thrill of the hunt. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, jolting me from my reverie. It was a message from Maya. "How's the investigation going? Any breakthroughs?" I smirked at the screen, my fingers flying over the keyboard as I replied, "You won't believe what I just found. A shell company tied to Kristen's perks. This is bigger than I thought." Moments later, my phone pinged again. "Get ready, girl. You're onto something. Let's meet later. We need to strategize." I grinned, the adrenaline coursing through my veins as I prepared to dive deeper. This was no longer just about Andrew's betrayal, this was about justice. I could feel the tide turning, the power shifting in my favor. I had been the one left behind, but now I was reclaiming my narrative, armed with the truth and the will to fight. With newfound resolve, I dove back into the documents, determined to unravel the tangled threads of lies that had ensnared my life. The coffee shop buzzed with life outside my window, but in here I was alone, a lone warrior preparing for battle. Every click of the mouse echoed my heartbeat, a constant reminder that I was no longer the victim. I was the investigator, the avenger, and I was ready to expose the truth. The sleek corporate office, with its glass walls and modern decor, felt like a glass cage. I took a moment to breathe in the view before the interview began. The Boston skyline stretched out before me, a sprawling testament to ambition and success. But behind those polished surfaces, I was reminded of the rot festering within the walls of Astronomer. Today, I was determined to peel back another layer of that fraud. I adjusted my notebook on my lap, the pages filled with my careful scrawls from previous interviews. The soft hum of the air conditioning mingled with the distant sounds of the city, creating a backdrop that felt almost surreal. I glanced at the clock. My contact would arrive any minute. The anticipation buzzed within me like electricity, and I could feel my heart racing in sync with the ticking seconds. Then, just as I was about to lose myself in my thoughts, the door swung open and a woman stepped in. Her name was Claire, a former employee who had worked closely with Kristen. She had agreed to meet me in this sleek office, a space that had once been a symbol of aspiration but now felt like a setting for betrayal. "Harper?" she asked, her voice a mix of nerves and determination. "Yes, that's me," I replied, offering a reassuring smile as she settled into the chair across from me. Her auburn hair fell loosely around her shoulders, and her eyes darted nervously around the office, as if she were afraid of being overheard. "Thanks for meeting me. I've been thinking a lot about this," she said, her fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve. "I just don't want to get caught in the crossfire." "I completely understand," I said, my voice steady. "But your experience could help expose the truth, and I promise to protect your identity." She took a deep breath, visibly steeling herself. "Okay, I'll try." As she spoke, I leaned forward, my pen poised to capture every word. "Start from the beginning. What was it like working with Kristen?" Claire hesitated, her gaze flicking to the glass walls, ensuring no one was eavesdropping. She was manipulative, to say the least. When I first started, I thought she was this charismatic go-getter. But I quickly realized that her charm was just a mask. She would play favorites and intimidate anyone who dared to question her decisions. "Intimidation? Can you give me an example?" I asked, my heart racing. This was the kind of evidence I needed. Claire's brow furrowed as she recalled the memory. "There was this meeting where one of our colleagues, Mike, suggested a different approach to a project. Kristen didn't like it. She shot him down in front of everyone, making it clear that dissent would not be tolerated. I could see the fear in his eyes. He went quiet after that, and I knew he was terrified of losing his job. Did anyone else witness this?" I pressed, jotting down notes furiously. Each detail felt critical. "Yes, a few of us were there. We all knew it was wrong, but no one spoke up." "The culture there, it just silences you," Claire replied, her voice trembling slightly. "We were all just trying to keep our heads down and survive." Her words resonated deeply within me. I had felt that same fear, that same suffocating pressure to conform. And did Kristen reward those who fell in line? Claire nodded, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "Absolutely. Promotions were handed out like candy, but only to those who kissed up to her. It was nauseating to watch. I was passed over multiple times, and I knew it was because I refused to play her game. Do you have any documentation or emails that could support this?" I asked, feeling a surge of hope. Claire bit her lip, glancing around the office once more. "I have a few things emails where she made her manipulative tactics clear. But I'm still bound by my NDA. I can't share everything." "I get that," I said, my heart sinking slightly. "But if you can provide anything, it could help build a case against her." After a moment of hesitation, Claire reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. "I managed to keep a few documents hidden. Just be careful with them." I accepted the envelope, my fingers brushing against hers. "Thank you, this is important." As I sifted through the contents, I found a collection of emails that detailed Kristen's favoritism and manipulation. My pulse quickened at the implications of what I was holding. This was the proof I needed to expose the corruption within the company. "Claire, this is incredible," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You've done a brave thing by sharing this." She smiled faintly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I just want to see things change. Too many good people have suffered because of Kristen. I will make sure your voice is heard, I promised, feeling the weight of that responsibility settle on my shoulders. You're not alone in this. The tension in the room shifted as Claire began to share more stories about Kristen's tactics. Each revelation felt like a dagger to my heart, but it also fueled my resolve. I was gathering the weapons I needed for the fight ahead, and with each piece of evidence, I felt more empowered. There was a time when Kristen threatened to fire someone just for suggesting we should consider employee feedback in our projects, Claire said, her voice trembling with the memory. She made it clear that dissent would not be tolerated. It was terrifying. I scribbled down her words, my mind racing. Did anyone stand up to her? Did anyone try to fight back? No one dared, Claire replied, shaking her head. She had a way of making people feel small. It's like she thrived on our fear. And that's why we need to expose her, I said, a fierce determination igniting within me. This culture of fear has to end. As we continued our conversation, the office buzzed around us, but I was lost in the revelations Claire shared. Each story painted a vivid picture of the toxic environment Kristen had cultivated, a world where ambition twisted into manipulation, and integrity was sacrificed at the altar of ambition. Do you think Kristen is aware of the damage she's causing? I asked, genuinely curious. I think she's so consumed by her own ambition that she doesn't care, Claire replied, her voice tinged with sadness. She sees people as stepping stones, not as colleagues. It's all about her success. That's the kind of mentality that needs to be exposed, I said, my resolve solidifying. If people can see her for what she is, maybe they'll start to fight back. We can't let her continue to manipulate and intimidate. Claire nodded, her eyes brightening with newfound hope. I want to help. I want to see her held accountable. Then we will, I said, my heart soaring with determination. We'll gather more evidence, and when the time is right, we'll take this to the media. The world needs to know the truth. As we wrapped up our meeting, I felt a sense of camaraderie forming between us. We were both warriors, ready to stand against the tide of corporate corruption. I promised Claire that I would keep her updated, and that she could trust me to protect her identity. With the envelope of evidence safely tucked in my bag, I left the office, the Boston skyline shimmering under the afternoon sun. Each step felt lighter as I headed to my car, the weight of my mission pressing down on me in the best possible way. I was gathering the tools I needed to dismantle the empire of deceit that Andrew and Kristen had built, one revelation at a time. As I drove through the bustling streets of Boston, I felt the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I was no longer just a scorned wife seeking revenge. I was a force of nature, ready to expose the truth hidden beneath the glossy surface of corporate success. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was prepared to fight for justice, armed with the stories and evidence that would finally bring down those who had wronged me and so many others. The park unfolded before me like a secret garden, a lush oasis amidst the concrete hustle of Boston. Sunlight dappled through the branches of sprawling oaks, casting playful shadows on the well-trodden paths. The gentle rustle of leaves mixed with the distant laughter of children, creating a serene backdrop that felt almost surreal given the chaos brewing in my life. I needed this moment of calm before plunging back into the storm. I spotted Maya, her vibrant energy radiating even from a distance. She was perched on a bench, scrolling through her phone, her brow furrowed in concentration. The sight of her instantly soothed my frayed nerves. Maya was my confidante, my fierce ally, and today I needed her wisdom more than ever. "Hey," I called out, waving as I approached. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare. Nothing new there, she replied, her eyes sparkling with warmth as she stood to embrace me. But I was starting to think Yaud pulled a disappearing act on me. I laughed lightly, though my heart was heavy with the burden I carried. Believe me, I'm not going anywhere. I just had to gather my thoughts and some evidence. Maya raised an eyebrow, her interest piqued. Evidence? You're speaking my language. Spill it. We settled onto the bench, the smell of blooming flowers wafting through the air, mingling with the earthy scent of grass. I took a moment, letting the tranquility seep into my bones before diving into the whirlwind of revelations I'd uncovered. So I've been speaking with former employees, and the stories I'm hearing are mind-blowing. Kristen's manipulation runs deep, Maya. It's like a web, ensnaring anyone who gets too close. Maya leaned in, her expression serious. Tell me everything. This is huge, Harper. I took a deep breath, the weight of my findings pressing against my chest. I've got emails, testimonies, even some documents that lay bare the favoritism and intimidation tactics Kristen employs. It's all there. She's been playing God with people's careers. Wow, Maya said, her eyes wide with disbelief. This is what we need to take them down. But you know we have to be strategic about this, right? You have to be careful. I know, I replied, the steel in my voice matching the fire in my heart. But I can't just sit back and let them get away with this. Andrew and Kristen think they can operate above the law, but I'm about to change the game. Maya's expression shifted, a mix of admiration and concern. I love your passion, but we should think this through. You need a solid plan before you make any moves. You don't want to expose yourself too soon. Her words sank in, and I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. You're right. I can't let my emotions cloud my judgment. I need to gather more evidence, build a solid case before going public. Exactly, Meyer encouraged, her voice steady. You need to document everything. The more proof you have, the harder it will be for them to dismiss your claims. Well, make them regret ever crossing you. I glanced around the park, the tranquility contrasting sharply with the tempest swirling within me. I've been thinking about how I can use this to my advantage. If I can gather enough information, I could not only expose them, but also leverage it for some real change within the company. It's about more than just revenge. It's about accountability. Maya smiled, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Now you're talking. You could be the catalyst for a corporate revolution. What's your next move? I'm planning to meet with a few more former employees, I said, my mind racing with possibilities. Each conversation reveals more layers of the corruption. I want to build a comprehensive dossier that showcases the toxic culture Kristen has created. Then, when the time is right, I'll take it to the media. Just make sure you have a secure way to share that information, Maya cautioned. You don't want them to catch wind of your investigation. They could try to silence you before you can even make your move. Remember, this is a game of chess, not checkers. I felt a shiver of excitement at her words. You're right. I need to be smart about this. I'll create a secure digital folder for all the evidence, and I'll use encrypted messaging to communicate with my contacts. I can't let them know what I'm up to until it's too late. Maya leaned back, a satisfied smile on her face. Now that's the Harper I know. You're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for everyone who's been silenced by that toxic culture. It's time to flip the script. As we talked, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the park. The world around us felt alive, a stark contrast to the darkness I was about to confront. I could feel the energy shifting, the tides turning in my favor. Do you really think I can do this? I asked, my voice softer now, the vulnerability creeping in. Absolutely, Maya said, her conviction unwavering. You have the strength and the intelligence to take them down. They think they are invincible, but they are not. You hold the power now." Her words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, igniting the fire within. "Thank you, Maya. I don't know what I'd do without you. You keep me grounded." "Always," she replied, her smile infectious. "We're in this together. I'll help you strategize, make sure you stay safe. But remember, this is your fight. You have to lead the charge." I nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose flooding my veins. "I will. I won't let them win. I've spent too long living in the shadows. It's time to step into the light and take control of my life." The weight of my mission felt lighter now, the burden shared between friends. As we continued to brainstorm, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, and I felt an exhilarating rush of anticipation. This was my moment. I could feel it in my bones. With every piece of evidence I collected, I was inching closer to my ultimate goal. I was no longer just a scorned wife seeking revenge. I was a force to be reckoned with, armed with the truth and the determination to reclaim my narrative. As we wrapped up our meeting, I looked out over the tranquil pond, the water reflecting the vibrant colors of the sunset. This was just the beginning. I was ready to unleash a storm that would shake the very foundations of astronomer, and nothing would stop me from achieving justice. With my heart pounding, I stood up, ready to take on the world. "Let's do this," I said, my voice steady with resolve. Maya stood beside me, her own determination radiating as we walked side by side. Together, we would expose the lies, dismantle the empire of deceit, and bring Andrew and Kristen to their knees. The game was on, and I was ready to fight. The bar was a sanctuary from the corporate chaos, a dimly lit enclave where the clinking of glasses and the low hum of conversation created a comforting backdrop. I nestled into a booth, the leather upholstery cools against my skin, the scent of aged whiskey mingling with the faint notes of citrus wafting from the cocktail menu. It was a far cry from the sterile, glass-walled offices of astronomer, and I relished the anonymity this place offered. Tonight was pivotal. I could feel it thrumming beneath my skin like the bass of a good song. I had the internal audit ready to leak, a digital bomb poised to explode in Andrew and Kristen's faces. My heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and trepidation, each beat echoing the gravity of what I was about to do. The world would know the truth. As I sipped my glass of Ch2 Margox, the velvety liquid warming my throat, I took a moment to reflect. I was no longer just Harper, the scorned wife. I was the woman about to bring down a corrupt empire. The thought sent a thrill through me, igniting a fire in my belly. I could practically hear the whispers of the city, the pulse of Boston echoing my resolve. With a quick glance around, I pulled out my phone and opened my notes. The words I had meticulously crafted were there, ready to spill into the world. I had spent hours perfecting the narrative, weaving together the threads of favoritism, manipulation, and greed into a tapestry that would ensnare both Andrew and Kristen. But beneath the excitement lingered a thread of fear. What would this do to my life? The thought of the chaos that would ensue sent a shiver down my spine. I had no illusions about the potential fallout. Andrew would fight back, and Kristen, with her ruthless ambition, would not go down without a fight. Would they retaliate? Would they try to silence me? I shook my head, dismissing the doubts. This was bigger than me. This was about accountability. I had spent too long watching from the sidelines, and now it was time to step into the arena. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. I took another sip of wine, savoring the moment. The bar was one of those hidden gems in Boston, tucked away from the bustling streets. The walls were adorned with vintage photographs, capturing the essence of a city steeped in history. It felt like a place where secrets were safe, and tonight I was ready to share mine with the world. My phone buzzed, and I glanced at the screen. It was Maya, my ever-encouraging friend, reminding me of the importance of this moment. I could almost hear her voice in my head, urging me to be bold. With a grin, I tapped out a quick reply, ready to unleash chaos. The bartender approached, his friendly demeanor a welcome distraction. "What can I get you?" he asked, his smile genuine, eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Just a refill for now," I replied, gesturing to my glass. "And maybe a side of courage." He chuckled, pouring more of the rich wine. "You got it." "Sounds like you've got something big planned." I smirked, considering my next words carefully. "You have no idea, just a little corporate revenge in the works." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "I love a good story. Care to share?" I hesitated, weighing the risk of divulging too much. "Let's just say it involves some shady practices and a whole lot of betrayal." He nodded knowingly, a spark of interest igniting in his gaze. "Well, good luck with that. The world needs more people like you taking a stand." His words resonated with me, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the moment. I was ready. As the bar buzzed around me, I focused on the task at hand. I opened my notes again, scanning through the meticulously organized data and damning evidence I had collected over the past few weeks. Each piece was a testament to the toxic environment Kristen had fostered, a culture where fear ruled and ambition twisted into manipulation. My thumb hovered over the contact for the journalist I had chosen to leak the audit to. He was an influencer with a massive following, known for his hard-hitting exposes. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment that would turn my life upside down and send shockwaves through astronomer. I hesitated, a flicker of anxiety creeping in. What if this backfired? What if I lost everything? But then I thought of all the employees like Claire, those who had suffered under Kristen's reign of terror. They deserved to have their voices heard. I owed it to them and to myself to follow through. With a deep breath, I pressed send. The audit would be out in the world within moments, a digital spark igniting a firestorm. The seconds ticked by, stretching into an eternity as I waited for the confirmation. My heart raced, each beat echoing louder in my ears. And then it came, the message confirming receipt. A rush of adrenaline surged through me, electrifying every nerve. I was doing it. I was taking control of my narrative. As I sat back, a sense of empowerment washed over me. I could almost hear the rumble of thunder in the distance, a storm gathering strength, ready to unleash its fury. I was ready for the chaos that was about to ensue. I welcomed it with open arms. I closed my eyes for a moment, picturing the fallout. Andrew's face when he realized his carefully constructed world was crumbling around him. Kristen's reaction when the truth about her manipulations came to light. I could almost taste the sweet victory, a heady mix of revenge and justice. The bar felt charged, the energy shifting as I tapped my fingers on the table, the rhythm matching the pounding of my heart. I was a storm on the verge of breaking, and nothing would hold me back. With renewed determination, I raised my glass, a silent toast to the chaos I had unleashed. The world would know the truth, and I would be the one to bring it to them. As I savored the moment, I couldn't help but smile. The game was on, and I was ready to play. Chapter 4: The Fall of the Titans. Andrew and Kristen's Downfall. The boardroom buzzed like a hive of disturbed bees, the atmosphere thick with tension as if the very air had become charged with whispers of scandal. I perched at the edge of my seat, the polished table gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights, reflecting the faces of executives who wore expressions ranging from concern to outright panic. Each person in the room was acutely aware that we were on the precipice of something monumental, a reckoning that would shake the very foundations of our company. Astronomer. Regulators are serious about this, one of the senior executives murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, yet it echoed loudly in the silence that enveloped us. They've launched an official investigation, and they're not going to back down. I leaned back slightly, my heart racing as I processed the implications of those words. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the culmination of all my efforts to expose Andrew and Kristen. I could feel the weight of the room's anxiety pressing down on me, but a spark of satisfaction ignited within. The walls were closing in on them, and I was finally witnessing their undoing. The tension escalated as the lead investigator, a woman with sharp features and an even sharper gaze, entered the room. She commanded immediate attention, her presence a stark contrast to the chaotic atmosphere. "Thank you for gathering on such short notice," she said, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of urgency. "As you are aware, we are investigating allegations of financial misconduct within your organization, primarily focusing on the misuse of company funds." I felt a thrill run through me at the mention of financial misconduct. Kristen's misuse of company funds was no longer a secret. It was about to be dragged into the light, and I had a front-row seat to the unraveling of their carefully curated lives. "Kristen Moore has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of this investigation," the investigator continued, her eyes scanning the room as she spoke. "We have received credible evidence suggesting that she used company resources for personal gain, including lavish retreats that were disguised as business trips." The room erupted in murmurs, disbelief etched on the faces of the executives. I watched as Andrew's expression morphed from surprise to something darker, an amalgamation of anger and fear. The man who had once commanded respect now looked like a cornered animal, and I felt a pang of satisfaction at the sight. "Is this true?" Andrew's voice broke through the chatter, his tone incredulous as he turned to the investigator. "Kristen would never what?" I interjected, unable to hold back my own voice. "Would never betray the trust of her colleagues, would never misuse her position for personal gain." I think we both know the answer to that, Andrew. His eyes flashed dangerously at me, but I stood my ground. The room fell silent as the realization of my words settled in. I was no longer the wronged wife. I was a force to be reckoned with, and I was ready to take them both down. The investigator continued, unfazed by our exchange. "Our investigation is ongoing, but we have substantial evidence, including financial records and testimony from former employees who have come forward with allegations of misconduct. We take these matters very seriously." I could feel the tension in the air shift, the executives around me whispering frantically as the reality of the situation set in. The downfall of Andrew and Kristen was no longer a distant possibility. It was happening right now, in this very room. "Do we have any idea how far this goes?" another executive asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Are there more people involved?" The investigator nodded gravely. "That's what we intend to find out. We will be interviewing employees across all levels, including those who have left the company under suspicious circumstances." A murmur of discontent rippled through the room. I couldn't help but smirk at the chaos unfolding around me. This was a reckoning not just for Andrew and Kristen, but for everyone who had turned a blind eye to the toxic culture that had festered within the walls of Astronomer for far too long. Andrew's gaze darted around the room, panic flickering in his eyes. This is absurd. Kristen is one of our most valuable executives. She's been instrumental in our recent successes. Instrumental in her own success, perhaps, I shot back, my voice laced with a biting edge. Her rise to power was built on a foundation of favoritism and manipulation, and now the truth is coming to light. The investigator's expression remained stoic as she continued. We recommend that all employees cooperate fully with our investigation. Those who choose to remain silent may find themselves implicated as well. A sense of dread washed over the room, and I could see Andrew's facade crumbling. The once charismatic executive was now just a man grappling with the consequences of his actions. I felt a surge of empowerment, knowing that I had played a crucial role in this unraveling, my quiet determination morphing into a powerful force for change. As the meeting continued, I leaned back in my chair, my heart racing with exhilaration. They thought they could sweep their misdeeds under the rug, but I had pulled the rug right out from under them. The thrill of watching Andrew squirm ignited a fire within me, a reminder that I was no longer a victim of betrayal. I was the architect of their downfall. The investigator wrapped up her statements, but I could see the tension still clinging to the room. "We will be in touch with further updates," she said, her gaze lingering on Andrew for a moment too long. "And I assure you, we will get to the bottom of this." With that, she exited the room, leaving behind a palpable air of uncertainty. The executives exchanged nervous glances, but I could hardly suppress my grin. I had set this in motion, and now the consequences were playing out like a thrilling drama. Andrew turned to me, his expression a mix of anger and desperation. "You did this," he accused, his voice low and dangerous. I met his gaze, unflinching. "You did this to yourself, Andrew. All I did was expose the truth." Before he could respond, Kristen burst into the room, her face pale and eyes wide with panic. "What's going on? I heard there's an investigation." The room fell silent once more, all eyes fixed on her. Andrew's expression shifted to one of frustration, and I couldn't help but revel in the chaos. "You're in trouble, Kristen," I said, my voice dripping with satisfaction. "Thayer onto you." Her face drained of color as she processed the implications of my words. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, the realization of her impending downfall dawning on her. "This isn't fair," she shouted, her voice rising in pitch. "I've worked too hard for this. Hard work built on deceit is not something to celebrate," I shot back, feeling the adrenaline surge through me. "You thought you could manipulate your way to the top without facing the consequences. Welcome to reality." The executives around us shifted uncomfortably, their discomfort palpable as the two of us stood toe-to-toe, locked in a battle of wills. I could see the fear in her eyes, a reflection of the chaos she had sown. Andrew stepped between us, desperation evident in his voice. "Kristen, you need to calm down. We can figure this out," but there would be no figuring it out. The tide had turned, and I was determined to ride it all the way to the end. As I looked at the two of them, standing side by side in their moment of crisis, I felt a profound sense of clarity. I had reclaimed my narrative, and I would not let them take it from me again. The fallout from this scandal would reverberate far beyond these walls, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. I turned on my heel and walked out of the boardroom, the weight of the world shifting with each step. The chaos was just beginning, and I was in control. The walls of my sleek office felt like they were closing in, each trophy and tech award gleaming mockingly as I stared out at the sprawling Boston skyline. The city had transformed into a battleground, and I was no longer just a spectator. I was at the eye of the storm, my heart racing with anticipation. Andrew's public image, meticulously crafted over the years, was beginning to fracture like glass under pressure, and I was ready to strike. The news broadcasts played softly in the background, a steady stream of updates that punctuated the tense atmosphere. The reporters spoke with a mix of incredulity and excitement, their voices laced with the thrill of scandal. Andrew Byron, the once revered CEO of Astronomer, finds himself in hot water as allegations of misconduct surface, one anchor declared, her tone dripping with sensationalism. I couldn't help but smirk at the irony. The same man who had built his empire on charm and deception was now watching it all slip away, piece by piece. "Harper, we have everything we need," my lead attorney, Mark, said as he entered the room, his expression a blend of determination and urgency. He spread a series of documents across my polished desk, each one a testament to the evidence we had meticulously gathered against Andrew. The internal audits, the testimonies from former employees, the financial records won't see this coming. I felt a surge of adrenaline course through me as I scanned the documents. Each page was a reminder of the betrayal I had endured, the pain I had transformed into a powerful weapon. "This is it, Mark. We're not just exposing him, we're dismantling everything he built. He thought he could get away with this, but we're going to make sure the world knows the truth." Mark nodded, his eyes shining with the same fire that fueled my resolve. "We'll file the lawsuit by the end of the week. I want him to feel the weight of every word as we unearth his lies." The thought of Andrew's face when he realized the full extent of my plans brought an exhilaration I had not anticipated. I had spent years living in his shadow, but now the tides had turned. I was the one in control, the one wielding the blade of justice. A notification pinged on my phone, pulling my attention away from the documents. I glanced down to see a message from Maya. "Harper, did you see Andrew's statement? He's trying to downplay everything. I can't believe he thinks he can charm his way out of this." I chuckled, my fingers flying across the screen as I replied, "He's been practicing that FOD for years. Let's see how far it gets him this time." With a deep breath, I turned my focus back to the news, the screen flashing with Andrew's face as he stood before a podium, flanked by his PR team. His charm was still intact, but the cracks were starting to show. "I want to assure our stakeholders that we are taking these allegations seriously," he stated, his voice steady but tinged with an underlying tremor. "We are cooperating fully with the investigation and will provide all necessary documentation to clear our name." I rolled my eyes, feeling a wave of vindication wash over me. The man who had once wielded his words like a weapon was now grasping at straws, desperately trying to maintain an illusion of control. "Clear your name. You can't even clear your conscience, Andrew," I muttered under my breath, the weight of my truth settling heavily in the air. The broadcast continued, and I could feel the tension in the room as the reporters dissected his every word. "Many are questioning how a company known for its innovation could allow such mismanagement to occur," one journalist remarked, her tone skeptical. "Is this the end of Andrew Byron's reign?" "Yes, please," I whispered, a grin creeping across my face. "Let the world see the facade crumble." Mark cleared his throat, pulling my focus back to the task at hand. "We need to prepare for the backlash. Hell fight back, and we have to be ready. The moment he senses a threat, Hell unleash his charm offensive. We can't let our guard down." I nodded, the determination in my chest solidifying into a fierce resolve. "Let him try. I'm ready for whatever he throws our way." As the broadcast concluded and the news shifted to another topic, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The chaos of the past few weeks had forged a new version of myself, stronger, bolder, and unapologetic. I had taken the reins of my narrative, and I was ready to write the ending that was long overdue. "Let's finalize the strategy," I said, gesturing to the documents spread before us. "We need to hit him hard and fast. I want our case airtight." Mark began laying out our plan, but my mind was racing ahead, envisioning the moment Andrew would realize he was no longer the master of his destiny. I could almost see the fear in his eyes when the truth came crashing down around him. Hours passed in a whirlwind of strategizing and planning, the sun dipping lower in the sky as the city lights began to twinkle like stars. The heaviness of the day mixed with the excitement of the impending battle created a heady energy in the room. Just as we were wrapping up, another alert buzzed on my phone. This time, it was a video clip that had gone viral, showcasing Andrew's previous public statements about corporate ethics and integrity. The caption read, "Hypocrisy at its finest." I watched, a mixture of disbelief and amusement washing over me as clips of Andrew's past interviews played, each one more ironic than the last. How can he keep talking about integrity when he's been living a lie? I said, shaking my head in disbelief. Mark leaned over to watch the video with me, both of us shaking our heads in unison. This is gold. The internet is ruthless, and they've picked up on the hypocrisy. The realization struck me like a jolt of electricity. The world had turned against him, and I was at the center of this storm. The tide was shifting, and Andrew's carefully curated image was rapidly unraveling. As the clip ended, I felt a sense of triumph wash over me. The chaos was just beginning, and I was ready to embrace every moment of it. I had transformed from a victim into a warrior, and the battle was far from over. "Let's get to work," I said, my voice resolute. "I want the world to know the truth." With each passing moment, the anticipation built within me. Andrew had no idea what was coming, but I was ready to unleash the full force of my revenge. The fall of the Titans was imminent, and I was determined to watch it all unfold. The walls of Kristen's once vibrant office seemed to close in around her, the remnants of her successful career now an echo of a life that had spun out of control. The sleek furniture, once a testament to her taste and ambition, now felt like a mockery of her fall from grace. I stood outside her door, watching as she paced back and forth, her heels clicking nervously against the polished floor, a sound that seemed to reverberate through the silence of the empty office. Each step was a reminder of her unraveling, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. "Please, just give me a moment," Kristen pleaded into her phone, desperation lacing her voice as she reached out to former colleagues, hoping for support that would never come. "I know we've had our differences, but this is different. The company is falling apart," and I couldn't hear the response on the other end, but the look on her face told me everything I needed to know. The rejection was palpable, each word striking harder than the last. It was a stark contrast to the confident woman who had once strutted through these halls, her laughter ringing out like a battle cry. Now, the room felt heavy with the weight of her isolation. "Damn it, this can't be happening," she muttered, tossing her phone onto the desk. It landed with a soft thud, a tiny echo of her crumbling world. The walls, lined with accolades and framed photos of her smiling alongside Andrew at high-profile events, seemed to mock her now. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her with a mix of pity and vindication. For too long, she had been the queen of this castle, reigning with an iron fist, wielding her power and influence like weapons against anyone who dared to challenge her. But now she was a pariah, a cautionary tale whispered about in the break rooms and hallways of Astronomer. I relished the sight, the sweet taste of revenge settling on my tongue like the finest wine. Kristen, you need to face this, I called out, my voice a mix of honey and steel as I walked into her office. The air crackled with tension, and she spun around, her expression shifting from surprise to irritation. Harper, she snapped, her voice sharp as a knife. What do you want? This isn't a good time. I couldn't help but smile, an expression that felt foreign yet exhilarating. Oh, I think the time is just perfect. You see, I've been watching the fallout from your little empire crumble, and I must say it's quite the spectacle. Don't you have somewhere else to be? She shot back, her eyes narrowing, but the fire behind them was fading. Not at all. I'm quite comfortable right here, watching the chaos unfold, I replied, stepping further into the room. You really thought you could manipulate your way to the top without consequences. Welcome to reality. Kristen's shoulders sagged, the fight draining from her as she sank into her chair, her face pale against the backdrop of her opulent office. I thought I could salvage this. I thought people would stand by me. People? Oh, honey, you've burned too many bridges, I said, relishing the moment. You made enemies, and now they're all too happy to watch you fall. You thought you were untouchable, but look where that got you. She looked at me, her expression a mix of shame and defiance. You think you're so clever, don't you? But this isn't over. I still have connections. I can turn this around. Sure, if those connections are willing to associate with someone who's under investigation for financial misconduct, I retorted, taking a step closer. You're not just facing scrutiny. You're on the brink of a public relations disaster. Your reputation is in tatters, and no amount of charm is going to fix that. I could see the realization dawning on Hirach's word I spoke was a nail in her coffin, and she was powerless to stop it. I felt a thrill at the sight of her unraveling, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before my eyes, and it was beautiful. Why are you here, Harper? She asked, her voice wavering slightly. To gloat, to remind me of my failures. Partly, but mostly, I wanted to see the woman who thought she could take everything from me and get away with it. I admitted, the honesty surprising even me. You had it all, Kristen. The power, the prestige, the man. Her eyes flashed at the mention of Andrew, the remnants of her former confidence flickering like a dying flame. He was never yours to take, she spat, the venom in her voice betraying her vulnerability. True, but I'm the one standing here now, aren't I? I countered, my heart pounding with exhilaration. You thought you could keep your secrets buried, but the truth always finds a way to the surface. Just like you thought you could keep your affairs hidden, but look where that got you. Kristen's face turned crimson, the anger bubbling beneath the surface. You don't understand. I did what I had to do to survive in this cutthroat world. It's just business. Business, is that what you call it? Exploiting others, playing favorites, lying and cheating your way to the top. I shook my head, my voice lowering, filled with contempt. Your survival tactics are nothing more than a coward's way out. You were never strong enough to face the consequences of your actions. She glared at me, but I could see the cracks forming in her armor. The once dominant figure was now a shadow of her former self, and I savored every moment of it. I won't let this define me, she said, her voice trembling as she attempted to regain her composure. I'll come back stronger. People like me always do. Maybe, but this time you'll have to do it without the support of those you've betrayed, I pointed out, watching as her bravado faltered. You'll be starting from scratch, and it'll be a long climb back to the top, if you can even make it. The silence that followed was deafening, the reality of her situation settling in like a heavy fog. I could feel the satisfaction bubbling within me, the thrill of victory coursing through my veins. I had fought hard for this moment, and it was everything I had hoped for and more. Get out, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, but the venom was gone, replaced by resignation. I took a step back, relishing the sight of her defeat. "Oh, I will. But remember this. The next time you decide to play games with someone's life, you might want to consider the consequences. Because I'm not the one who's going to fall." As I turned to leave, I glanced back at her one last time. The fierce woman who had once ruled this office was now a mere shell of her former self, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. I walked out of her office, the door closing behind me with a satisfying click, knowing that I had not only reclaimed my power, but had also paved the way for the reckoning she so richly deserved. The path ahead was mine to shape, and I was ready to embrace every moment of it. The fall of the Titans was just beginning, and I was determined to watch it all unfold. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped me as I settled into my favorite corner of the cafe, a quaint spot nestled between the glitzy storefronts of the affluent neighborhood. The place buzzed with the hum of conversations and the clinking of cups, a symphony of life that felt both comforting and invigorating. I pulled my laptop closer, my fingers poised over the keys, ready to dive into the chaos that had become my life. Today would be different. I could feel it in the air. As I sipped my espresso, the rich bitterness ignited a fire within me, fueling my determination. I had spent too long feeling like a shadow in my own life. But now, with the regulator's investigation into Andrew and Kristen gaining momentum, everything was turning in my favor. I could practically taste the vindication on the tip of my tongue, a sweet reward for the patience I had exercised in the face of betrayal. My phone buzzed, vibrating against the smooth surface of the table. I glanced down to see a message from Maya. "Harper, the news is breaking. Regulators have found evidence against Andrew and Kristen. This is it." I grinned, a giddy rush flooding through me. The very people who had orchestrated my downfall were now facing the repercussions of their actions. "Let them squirm," I typed back, my heart racing as I envisioned Andrew's reaction when the full extent of his deceit was unveiled. Time to sharpen the knives. The cafe was alive with energy, but I was hyper-focused, the swirling thoughts of my plan intertwining with the joy of seeing my enemies being held accountable. I opened my laptop, the screen illuminating my face as I pulled up the latest news articles detailing the investigation. The headlines flashed before my eyes, each one more exhilarating than the last. "Corporate misconduct exposed," "Astronomer executives under investigation," and "Whistleblowers reveal dark secrets behind company's success." Each article felt like a validation of my journey, a testament to the strength I had found within myself. I was no longer just the scorned wife. I was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who had reclaimed her narrative. The thought sent a thrill through me, igniting my resolve to ensure Andrew and Kristen faced the consequences of their actions. As I scrolled through the details of the investigation, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come. The woman sitting at the cafe now was a stark contrast to the one who had stumbled upon that kiss cam footage, heartbroken and betrayed. I had transformed that pain into power, and the world was about to witness it unfold. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again, and I glanced down to see an incoming call from Mark, my attorney. I answered, my heart racing with anticipation. "Harper, you need to brace yourself. The regulators have released their findings, and it's not good for Andrew or Kristen. The evidence they've gathered implicates them in serious misconduct, financial mismanagement, misappropriation of funds, the works." "Yes, this is it," I exclaimed, barely able to contain my excitement. "What about the press? Are they all over it?" "Like bees to honey," Mark replied, his voice steady yet filled with urgency. The media is in a frenzy, and the board is scrambling to contain the fallout. Your timing couldn't be better. I suggest we prepare for a press conference. Can't be just a whisper in the wind. We need to ensure this story is loud and clear. The thrill of the impending chaos electrified me, and I could feel a broad smile stretching across my face. Let's make it unforgettable. They thought they could play with my life. No, they're going to feel the weight of every lie they spun. As I hung up, a sense of clarity washed over me. I was at the center of a storm, and I was ready to unleash the full force of my revenge. I started drafting notes for the press conference, my mind racing with ideas. I would not just be a victim telling her story, I would be the woman who took down the titans of corporate greed. The CAF was bustling, but my focus narrowed to the task at hand. I envisioned every detail, the way I would step up to the podium, the confidence in my voice, the way the cameras would capture my resolve. I wanted them to see the transformation, the woman who had gone from heartbreak to hero. As I typed, I noticed a group of women seated a few tables away, their laughter ringing through the air. They were discussing their careers, sharing stories of triumph and challenges, and I felt a surge of solidarity. It was a reminder that I was not alone in this fight. Women everywhere were rising, reclaiming their power, and I was determined to be a part of that movement. I glanced outside the CAF window, watching the world go by, the wealthy patrons strolling past, their designer bags swinging at their sides. I had spent too long feeling small in this world, but now, with the winds of change at my back, I felt invincible. The CAF had become my sanctuary, my war room, and I was ready to storm the castle. With each keystroke, I crafted my speech, weaving in the core themes of betrayal, resilience, and empowerment. I wanted to inspire, not just shock. I wanted women everywhere to know that they could rise from the ashes of their own heartbreak. This was not just about me. It was about every woman who had ever felt silenced, who had ever been pushed aside. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow through the CAF windows, and I paused for a moment, absorbing the energy around me. I could hear snippets of conversations around me, the clinking of cups, the laughter of friends, all blending into a harmonious backdrop. It reminded me that life was still beautiful, even amidst the chaos. Just then, my phone buzzed again. It was another message from Maya. "Did you hear? Andrew is trying to spin this as a misunderstanding. He thinks he can charm his way out of it. Can you believe it?" I couldn't help but chuckle, shaking my head. He's delusional if he thinks that will work. The truth is out, and it's only a matter of time before he's cornered. In that moment, I realized that Andrew's charm had always been his greatest weapon, but now it was his biggest liability. The world was shifting, and his carefully curated image was about to shatter. I felt a rush of satisfaction, the thrill of knowing that my plans were finally coming to fruition. As I continued to write, my mind raced with possibilities. I envisioned not just the press conference, but the aftermath headlines, the conversations, the ripple effect of my actions. I would not only expose Andrew and Kristen, I would dismantle the very system that allowed their corruption to thrive. By the time I closed my laptop, the sun had set, leaving a soft twilight glow illuminating the CAF. I took a deep breath, the weight of the world feeling lighter on my shoulders. I was ready for the next step, ready to take back my narrative and rewrite my story. With a final glance around the CAF, I stood and gathered my things, a newfound sense of purpose coursing through me. The fall of the Titans was imminent, and I was prepared to watch it all unfold. This was my moment, and I would seize it with both hands. Chapter 5. From Betrayal to Empowerment. Harper's New Empire. The Mediterranean Sea stretched before me, a shimmering expanse of blue that seemed to dance in the sunlight, and I stood on the deck of the luxurious yacht, my heart racing with anticipation. This was more than just a boat. It was a vessel of transformation, a symbol of all I had fought for and all I was about to achieve. The salty breeze whipped through my hair, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly free. "Maya, can you believe this?" I turned to my best friend, who stood beside me, her eyes sparkling as she took in the view. We were anchored off the coast of Portofino, the colorful buildings of the town rising like a vibrant palette against the backdrop of the lush hills. It was stunning, but it was the deal I had just signed that truly left me breathless. A Netflix deal. They want my story, my life, my journey from betrayal to empowerment, and I get to tell it my way. Maya laughed, the sound infectious. "You deserve this, Harper. This is your moment to shine, and I can't wait to see how you'll turn this into something amazing. Just imagine the impact your story will have on women everywhere." As she spoke, I could feel the weight of my past lifting. The betrayal, the humiliation, it all felt like a distant memory, eclipsed by the power I now wielded. I had taken the pain and turned it into something beautiful, something that could inspire others. I leaned against the polished railing, letting the sun warm my skin. It's surreal. Just a few months ago, I was a woman scorned, humiliated on live television. Now, I'm a woman reclaiming her voice, ready to dismantle the very system that tried to crush me. Maya smiled, her expression filled with pride. "And you're doing it with style. Look at this place. We are literally in the heart of luxury, surrounded by the Mediterranean's finest." I glanced around at the yacht's opulent featureless marble countertops, plush seating areas, and an open bar stocked with the finest wines. Each detail felt like a testament to my journey, a reminder that I had risen from the ashes of my past. It's hard to believe I'm here, living this life, while Andrew and Kristen are dealing with their mess back home. I wish I could see their faces when they realize I'm the one who came out on top. "Their downfall is just the icing on the cake," Meyer added, rolling her eyes playfully. "You're not just getting revenge. You're building an empire, Harper. This is only the beginning." The enormity of it all hit me like a wave crashing against the shore. I was no longer just a tech executive. I was a force to be reckoned with, a woman on a mission to empower others who had been silenced. I had signed the rights to my story, but more importantly, I had launched a fund dedicated to supporting women who had faced corporate retaliation. It was about lifting others up while I rose, and that felt right. "Let's toast to new beginnings," I said, raising my champagne flute, the bubbles dancing to the surface as I clinked it against Maya's. "To empowerment, to resilience, and to living our best lives." "To empowerment," Maya echoed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. We took a sip, the crisp taste of the champagne igniting a fire within me, a reminder of the journey that had brought me here. As we leaned against the railing, I let my gaze drift to the quaint harbor of Portofino, the boats bobbing gently in the water, the locals bustling about their daily routines. It was a world away from the corporate greed I had experienced back home. "You know what? I want to do more than just tell my story. I want to create a platform where women can share their experiences, where we can unite and support each other." Maya nodded, her enthusiasm infectious. "That's brilliant. You could host events, workshops, even a podcast. The possibilities are endless." My mind raced with ideas, each one more exhilarating than the last. Imagine a community of women who have faced similar challenges, empowering one another. We could build a network, a safe space for sharing our truths and fighting against the injustices we've faced. "Absolutely. You can be the voice of a movement, Harper. You have the platform now, And I can help you every step of the way, Maya said, her support unwavering as always. The warmth of the sun bathed us in its glow, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought me here. I thought of all the women who had inspired me, the stories I had encountered along the way. This was my chance to pay it forward, to be a beacon of hope for those still trapped in the shadows of betrayal and fear. Just then, the yacht's crew approached, a handsome young man with sun-kissed skin and a charming smile. "Excuse me, ladies, may I offer you some refreshments? We have a selection of local delicacies that you simply must try." "Absolutely," I replied, feeling the excitement of the moment. As the crew began to serve us plates filled with fresh seafood, bruschetta, and local cheeses, I couldn't help but marvel at how my life had transformed. The girl who had once felt humiliated was now embracing the very essence of luxury, surrounded by friends and new opportunities. "This is incredible," I said, savoring a bite of the bruschetta. "I want to incorporate this into my story as well: the beauty, the resilience, the strength of women in every corner of the world." Maya grinned, her eyes shining with pride. "You're going to change lives, Harper. Just wait and see." I took a moment to soak it all in: the laughter, the sunshine, the taste of freedom. The yacht rocked gently beneath me, and I felt as though I was floating between two worlds, one of betrayal and pain, and another of empowerment and hope. "Speaking of changing lives," Maya said, her voice suddenly taking on a serious note, "have you thought about how you want to approach the press conference? I know you're excited, but it's important to be strategic about how you present your story." I nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. "You're right. I need to craft a message that resonates, one that highlights not just my journey but the systemic issues that allow companies to exploit their employees. I want to make it clear that this is bigger than just me." Maya leaned closer, her eyes intense. "Exactly. You have the chance to shine a light on the issues that affect so many women in the corporate world. This is your opportunity to be the voice that advocates for change." The thought sent a shiver of excitement down my spine. I want to make a statement, one that drives home the importance of accountability and support for women who have been wronged. It's time for us to stand together and demand change. And you will, Harper. You've already taken the first step by sharing your story. The world is ready to hear it. As we finished our meal, I knew that the road ahead would be challenging, filled with obstacles and skeptics. But I was no longer afraid. I had transformed my pain into power, and I was ready to fight for what was right. With the sun setting behind the hills, casting golden rays across the water, I felt a surge of determination. I would not only reclaim my narrative, I would help others reclaim theirs. I was ready to step into this new chapter of my life, ready to embrace the empowerment that lay ahead. As we raised our glasses once more, the sound of laughter mingling with the gentle lapping of the waves, I knew that this moment was just the beginning of something extraordinary. The world was vast, filled with stories waiting to be told, and I was determined to be one of the voices that echoed through it. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden shimmer across the Mediterranean Sea as I stood on the upper deck of the yacht, a wave of exhilaration washing over me. The air was thick with a celebratory energy, the kind that ignites a fire in your soul and makes you believe anything is possible. I took a deep breath, allowing the salty breeze to fill my lungs, and felt the weight of the past months lift off my shoulders. This was it. This was my moment. "Maya, can you believe we are actually doing this?" I turned to my best friend, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the setting sun. She was bursting with enthusiasm, her eyes sparkling as brightly as the waves below us. "I can and I can't," she exclaimed, her voice a vibrant melody against the backdrop of the gentle lapping of the waves. Launching a fund to support women affected by corporate retaliation. This is monumental, Harper. You're changing lives. A smile broke across my face, and I raised my glass of champagne high, the bubbles dancing up the flute. To new ventures and unbreakable spirits. To new ventures. Meyer echoed, her voice ringing out with a joy that felt contagious. We clinked our glasses, the sound sharp and clear, a toast to resilience and empowerment amidst a sea of luxury. As I took a sip, the crispness of the champagne invigorated me, filling me with a sense of purpose I had long yearned for. This fund was not just a financial initiative. It was a lifeline for women who had faced the same betrayal I had. I wanted to create a sanctuary where they could find support, guidance, and most importantly, a voice. I looked around the upper deck, adorned with elegant decor that sparkled in the fading light. The yacht was a luxurious oasis, but it was the atmosphere, laughter, the camaraderie that made it feel so alive. Crew members moved gracefully about, serving hors d'oeuvres that were as exquisite as the view. The picturesque Portofino harbor lay before us, the charming buildings of the Piazzetta glowing in the twilight, a reminder of the beauty that surrounded us. I can just picture it, I mused, allowing my mind to wander. Workshops, mentorship programs, maybe even a podcast. Women sharing their stories, supporting one another. We could create a movement that empowers women to stand up against corporate injustice. Maya nodded vigorously, her excitement palpable. Absolutely. You have so much to offer, Harper. Your story is powerful, and now you can help others find their strength too. The thought sent a thrill through me. I imagined women from all walks of life coming together, sharing their experiences, their triumphs, and their struggles. I wanted to foster a community where no woman would feel alone in her fight. This is just the beginning, I said, feeling the weight of my words. I want rest until we've made a real impact. Maya stepped closer, her expression earnest. And you won't have to do it alone. We're in this together, remember. I'll help however I can. Of course you will. You're my right hand in all of this, I grinned, feeling a surge of gratitude for her unwavering support. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple, a sense of peace enveloped me. I had come so far from the woman who had been humiliated on live television, her heart shattered. The betrayal had ignited a fierce determination within me, transforming pain into purpose. The journey had been tumultuous, but it had led me to this moment of empowerment, and I was ready to embrace it fully. Do you remember that day at the cafe when we first started talking about this? Meyer asked, her eyes reflecting the vibrant colors of the sunset. Of course, I was so lost back then, and now look at us. I gestured around the deck, taking in the luxury that surrounded us. It's surreal. I never imagined I'd be here, launching a fund, living this life. Life has a funny way of surprising us, Maya said, her voice thoughtful. Sometimes the hardest moments lead to the most beautiful transformations. I nodded, the truth of her words resonating deep within me. I want to ensure that women know they can rise from their struggles, just like I did. They don't have to stay silent or feel powerless. Maya raised her glass again, a glint of mischief in her eyes. Speaking of rising, let's make a toast to you. To the woman who turned heartbreak into an empire. To the woman who turned heartbreak into an empire. I echoed, laughter bubbling up as we clinked our glasses once more. The evening unfolded in a splendid haze of laughter and celebration, each moment a reminder of how far I had come. As we indulged in the delicious local delicacies, fresh seafood, vibrant bruschetta, and rich cheeses, I savored each bite, The flavors, a celebration of life and victory. Harper, do you think Andrew and Kristen are watching all of this unfold? Meyer asked, her tone shifting to playful mischief. Oh, they must be seething, I replied, a smirk creeping onto my lips. Especially Andrew. He thought he could charm his way out of this, but now he's just a footnote in my story. I hope he's enjoying the view from the sidelines. Probably drowning in his own delusions, Maya laughed, her laughter bright against the backdrop of the starlit sky. As the night deepened, I felt a sense of belonging wash over me. The yacht, the laughter, the shared dreams, it was a tapestry of connection woven with threads of empowerment and resilience. I was no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was a woman with a mission, ready to lift others as I had risen. What's next for you? Meyer asked, her eyes glimmering with curiosity. I leaned back against the railing, allowing the cool breeze to wash over me. I think I want to travel, visit women's organizations around the world, hear their stories, and see how we can collaborate. I want to learn from them and help amplify their voices. There's so much work to be done. Count me in. I'll help you research and set everything up. This is going to be incredible, she said, her enthusiasm infectious. With each passing moment, the possibilities seemed endless, and the fire within me burned brighter. I had transformed my pain into purpose, and I was ready to turn that purpose into action. As I gazed out at the vast, twinkling sea, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. The journey ahead would undoubtedly be filled with challenges, but I was no longer afraid. I had allies, a community, and a mission that fueled my spirit. Tomorrow, we'll start planning, I said, feeling the excitement bubble up within me. We'll brainstorm ideas for the fund, set goals, and make a list of the women's organizations we want to connect with. Absolutely. We'll hit the ground running, Meyer agreed, her eyes shining with determination. As I stood there, surrounded by the beauty of the Mediterranean and the unwavering support of my best friend, I knew that this was just the beginning of something extraordinary. I was reclaiming my narrative, and I was ready to help others do the same. The yacht rocked gently beneath us, a reminder that life is a series of ebbs and flows, and I was ready to ride the waves of this new chapter. The world was vast, filled with stories waiting to be told, and I was determined to be one of the voices that echoed through it. With my heart full of hope and my spirit ignited, I raised my glass one last time, ready to embrace the journey ahead. Here's to empowerment, resilience, and the incredible women we will uplift together. Maya raised her glass with fervor, her voice ringing out with affirmation. To empowerment. And in that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the Mediterranean, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be, on the cusp of creating a new empire built on strength, solidarity, and the unyielding power of women. As the first notes of Coldplay's music floated across the water, I felt as if the universe had conspired to deliver me a message. The yacht rocked gently beneath my feet, the soft sound of waves lapping against the hull blending harmoniously with the rising melody. I stood at the railing, my heart swelling with a mixture of excitement and introspection, the breathtaking view of the concert lighting up the night sky like a canvas splashed with color. This was more than just a concert. It was a celebration of the journey I had undertaken, a vivid reminder of how far I had come. Maya, can you believe we are actually here? I turned to her, my voice barely above a whisper, awash with gratitude and disbelief. She stood beside me, her eyes wide as she watched the flickering lights on the stage, a look of pure wonder etched on her face. It's surreal, Harper, we're living the dream. And to think, just months ago, you were facing the worst moment of your life. I nodded, memories flooding my mind, those dark days filled with betrayal, Andrew's laughter echoing in my ears, as he had betrayed me on live television. But tonight, as the music enveloped me, I could feel those ghosts receding, replaced by a newfound strength that pulsed through my veins. I had transformed my pain into power, and now I was standing on the precipice of a life I had always envisioned for myself. The first chords of Viva La Vida rang out, and I closed my eyes, allowing the music to wash over me like a warm embrace. Each note resonated deep within my soul, a reminder that I was not defined by my past, but rather by my resilience. The lyrics echoed my journey falling from grace and rising to reclaim my narrative. I felt liberated. "Look at you standing here so empowered," Meyer exclaimed, her voice cutting through my reverie. "You're like a phoenix rising from the ashes, Harper. I mean, who else can say they turned their heartbreak into a Netflix deal and a fund for women?" "Right, it feels like something out of a movie." I laughed, my heart soaring as I took in the vibrant scene before me. The concert was a kaleidoscope of colors, with fans swaying and singing along, their faces illuminated by the glow of the stage lights. The atmosphere was electric, infused with the spirit of camaraderie and joy. As I watched the crowd, I felt a profound sense of connection. We were all there for the same reason: to celebrate life, love, and the art of resilience. I took a deep breath, inhaling the salty air mixed with the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby trattoria. It was intoxicating, the world around me buzzing in perfect harmony. "Think about it," Maya said, nudging me gently. "You have the power to change lives now. You're not just a spectator in this world, you're a force of nature." My gaze drifted back to the stage, and I considered her words. The enormity of my journey settled in my chest like a comforting weight. I had come so far, from being the woman scorned to becoming a beacon of hope for others. I wanted to scream it from the rooftops, to let every woman out there know that they too could rise and reclaim their power. The music played on, and I could feel the pulse of the crowd aligning with my heartbeat. "Let's not just enjoy the concert. Let's make a vow right now," I declared, turning to Maya with fervor. "Let's promise to always lift each other up and support other women who have been knocked down. We're going to create a movement that echoes through time." Maya's eyes sparkled as she raised her glass, mirroring my enthusiasm. "To empowerment, to lifting each other up, and to Coldplay for being the soundtrack of our revolution." To empowerment. I echoed, our glasses clinking, the sound ringing out like a battle cry amidst the symphony of music and laughter. I felt a renewed sense of purpose surge through me, igniting a fire that had long been smoldering beneath the surface. As the next song began, I let go of any lingering doubts or fears. I was exactly where I was meant to be, surrounded by friends, love, and the promise of what lay ahead. The strains of a sky full of stars enveloped me, and I could almost feel the universe aligning in perfect harmony with my aspirations. I glanced around, noticing couples dancing, friends hugging, and strangers sharing moments of joy. It was a beautiful tapestry of human connection, and I felt privileged to witness it. In that moment, I realized that my journey had not just been about my own healing. It was about creating a ripple effect that could inspire others to take their own steps toward empowerment. Can you imagine how many stories are out there waiting to be told? I mused, my mind racing with possibilities. Women all over the world have faced challenges like mine, and I want to amplify their voices. We could create a platform where they can share their stories, where we can unite and support each other. Maya nodded vigorously, her excitement matching my own. "Yes, we could host events, workshops, maybe even a podcast. Think about all the incredible women we could bring together." I could see it all in my mind, an unstoppable movement, fueled by shared experiences and a fierce desire for change. The thought sent shivers down my spine, and I felt a smile stretch across my face. The music swelled, and I found myself dancing along with the crowd, my body moving instinctively to the rhythm. I twirled, laughter bubbling up inside me, feeling as if I were shedding the last remnants of my past. This was my moment. I was no longer shackled by betrayal but liberated by empowerment. As the concert continued, I caught a glimpse of the stage, illuminated by brilliant lights and filled with the magnetic presence of Chris Martin. He sang with such passion, his voice soaring through the night air, and I felt every word resonate with the core of my being. I was a woman reborn, and I would not be silenced by my past. "Look at you, Harper," Maya teased as she joined me in the dance. "You're like a rock star yourself. The world is your stage now. Let's just say I'm ready for an encore." I laughed, twirling once more, fully embracing the joy that surrounded me. As the final notes of the concert echoed into the night, I lifted my head to the stars, feeling the cool breeze against my skin. I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with empowerment, connection, and the unyielding spirit of women rising together. The yacht bobbed gently on the waves, and I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I had transformed my pain into purpose, and I was ready to embrace every moment of this exhilarating journey. "Here's to the future, Maya," I whispered, my heart swelling with hope and determination. "We are just getting started." "Absolutely, Harper. Together we will change the world," she replied, her voice filled with unwavering conviction. As we stood there, gazing out at the shimmering waters of the Mediterranean, I knew that the music would forever remind me of this pivotal turning point in my life, a celebration of the strength I had found within myself, and a promise to uplift others on their journeys. The world was vast, and I was ready to explore it, one empowering story at a time. The soft hum of celebration filled the air as I stood on the upper deck of the yacht, illuminated by twinkling lights that mirrored the stars above. The Mediterranean breeze tousled my hair, and the distant sound of Coldplay's music floated through the night, wrapping around me like a warm embrace. My phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket, yet for a moment, I let it vibrate against my thigh, choosing instead to soak in the euphoria of the moment. "Maya, can you believe this?" I turned to her, my heart racing with excitement and disbelief. "This is real. We're really doing this." Maya, her hair cascading over her shoulders, her smile radiant as the city lights twinkled in her eyes, nodded vigorously. "It's surreal, Harper. Look at how far you've come. From being blindsided to launching a fund that will change lives. This is monumental." A wave of warmth rushed over me, grounding me in the reality of my transformation. Just months before, I had been shattered and humiliated, but now I was standing here, ready to empower other women to be their voice and advocate. My phone buzzed again, pulling me from my thoughts, and I fished it out, heart pounding with anticipation. Messages flooded in, each one more supportive than the last. "Saw your story on social media. You're amazing. You're a true inspiration. Let's connect, I want to help." The words lit a fire inside me, igniting a sense of purpose that was exhilarating. "Look at this," I said, showing Maya my screen, the vibrant messages spilling across the display. "It's like a tidal wave of support." I never expected this level of impact. Maya leaned in, her eyes bright with pride. "You deserve every bit of it, Harper. You turned your pain into something powerful. You're a beacon of hope now." The yacht rocked gently beneath us, and I took a deep breath, letting the salty air fill my lungs. The Piazzetta was alive with laughter and chatter, the charming restaurants brimming with couples and groups enjoying the balmy night. I could see the warm glow of lights from the Imperial Palace in the distance, a reminder of the luxurious world that surrounded us. But tonight, that luxury felt different. It wasn't just about the yacht or the concert. It was about reclaiming my narrative, about taking my life back from the ashes of betrayal. As I scrolled through another message, a pang of gratitude surged within me. I can't believe how many people are resonating with my story. It feels like I'm not just telling my truth, I'm sparking a movement. Maya's expression turned serious, her brows knitting together. And with that comes responsibility, Harper. You're not just a voice, you're a platform now. Her words hit me hard. I felt the weight of that truth settle in my chest. I know. I want to ensure that this fund I'm creating truly makes a difference, that it's not just another initiative that fades away. I want to be the kind of leader who inspires real change. Then you need to start planning, Maya said, her determination matching mine. Let's focus on how we can make this fund impactful. We should reach out to organizations, set goals, and gather a team. You're going to need allies in this. Yes, allies, I echoed, my mind racing with the possibilities. I imagined women from all walks of life coming together, sharing their stories, finding strength in solidarity. I envisioned workshops, mentorship programs, and maybe even a podcast where women could share their experiences, their triumphs, and their struggles. The thought sent a thrill through me, but the reality of the responsibility weighed heavily as well. I want to create a sanctuary, a place where women know they can find support, guidance, and a voice. This fund needs to be more than financial help. It needs to be a lifeline. Maya clasped my hand, her eyes ablaze with passion. You can do this, Harper. You have the drive, and you're not alone. We'll build this together. You've already inspired me, and I want to be part of this journey. As I stood there, the music vibrating through the air and the excitement of the crowd washing over me, I felt a renewed sense of clarity. I had emerged from the depths of despair, and now I was ready to rise higher than ever before. The first notes of Fix You drifted through the night, and I closed my eyes, letting the lyrics wash over me. The message was clear and resonated deeply. This was about healing, about finding light in the darkest moments. I was no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was a survivor, a warrior ready to fight for others like me. Maya, we need to start connecting with women's organizations all over, I said, my voice rising with enthusiasm. We can host events, fund scholarships, and create mentorship programs. We can build a community that empowers women to stand up for themselves. Yes, think about all the incredible women we could bring together. Maya chimed in, her excitement infectious. We could even have guest speakers, influential women who have overcome their own challenges. Imagine the power of their stories. As the music swelled, I felt a surge of determination. I was done being sidelined by my past. I was ready to take charge. Let's make a list of organizations we can partner with. I want to meet with women who have faced corporate retaliation, who have been silenced. They need to know their voices matter. Maya grinned, her enthusiasm bubbling over. Absolutely. Let's start with local groups here in Boston and expand from there. You're creating a movement, Harper, and I'm so proud to stand by your side. As the concert continued, I looked around at the crowd, feeling the energy pulse through me. It was more than just a celebration of music. It was a celebration of life, resilience, and the power of unity. The laughter, the joy, the shared experiences, it all felt like a tapestry woven with threads of empowerment. Maya, do you think Andrew and Kristen are watching this unfold? I asked playfully, a smirk creeping onto my lips. Oh, they must be seething. She laughed, her eyes twinkling mischievously. Especially Andrew. He thought he could charm his way out of this, but look at you now. You're the one with the spotlight. I chuckled, feeling a sense of satisfaction wash over me. Let them watch. They thought they could break me, but I'm just getting started. My story isn't over, it's only beginning. As the night wore on, I felt the weight of my new responsibilities settle in. But instead of fear, I felt excitement. The world was vast and filled with stories waiting to be told, and I was determined to be one of the voices that echoed through it. With every message of support, every promise of collaboration, I knew that I was not alone. I had allies, a community, and a mission that fueled my spirit. Here's to the future, Maya, I whispered as the final notes of the concert faded into the night, leaving a lingering sense of anticipation in the air. We are just getting started. Absolutely, Harper. Together, we will change the world, she replied, her voice filled with unwavering conviction. We are at the end of our story. And as the stars twinkled above us, I realized that the journey ahead would undoubtedly be filled with challenges. But I was no longer afraid. I had transformed my pain into purpose, and I was ready to embrace the waves of this new chapter, one empowering story at a time. The final notes of that Coldplay concert faded into the night, so did the illusion of loyalty that once masked Andrew's life. But what he didn't realize was that while he was lost in the music, I was scripting his downfall, one scandal, one strategy, one social post at a time. This wasn't just about catching a cheater. It was about flipping the entire power structure he thought he controlled. Now their careers answer to mine. If you think that was wild, just wait until you see how I turned betrayal into leverage and rewrote the rules. Subscribe now for more real-world revenge stories where karma comes dressed in designer heels and legal briefs. Don't just watch, take notes.